Why is it so challenging to make continued progress long term on cable exercise variations? Think mid-cable rows, lat pull-downs, tricep press-down variations, cable curls, flies, and all the varying attachments you could incorporate on these exercises, and why so many people seem to hit a plateau so early on in their training and very few people ever make it to the bottom of the weight stack. So this is actually a hurdle that a lot of people run into in their accessory work, and few people actually consider how much potential they're leaving on the table with these exercises. The reality is, as accessory variations, they contribute heavily to your muscular development, and if you simply chalk it up to the fact that you're just not good at that exercise, you might be missing out on the potential to move some serious weight or develop some serious muscle. So when I talk to gym goers, when I work with clients, what I often find is the overlooked factor is training volume. Check this out. So let's say, for example, you do a set of lat pull downs for 15 reps and use 100 pounds. That's going to present you with 1,500 pounds of volume for one set. So what you might have just realized is you've never actually even considered that to begin with, which most people haven't. They just go do their 15 reps of lat pull downs. So considering volume on accessory lifts is actually extremely progressive, but usually overlooked. The reality is, if you want your big lifts to get stronger, you need to be considering how much stronger you're getting on all of your lifts over time. Because these accessory lifts, which should be taking up about 80% of your program, are exactly what's forming the foundation for your physical capacity to move bigger weights on things like deadlifts, squats, benches, etc. So we've got 100 pounds by 15 reps. That's 1,500 pounds of volume. The reality is, few people are doing just one set. I've never gone in the gym and been like, I'm just going to do one set of lat pull downs. Some people, depending on the amount of volume they're trying to push, might be doing as much as 5, 6, 7 sets. I usually end up around 5 if it's one of my primary accessory lifts, but if that's not the case, let's be conservative, and for example's purposes, we'll say you're doing 3 sets of lat pull downs in this particular workout. So if we bring that across 3 sets, now we're looking at about 4,500 pounds of volume on your lat pull down. And so this is where it gets interesting, because on the majority of weight stacks at the top end of the stack, the top third or the top half, depending on the company that fabricated it, you're looking at 5, 7.5, or 10 pound intervals in plates. Now, once you move into the bottom third or bottom half, depending on the stack on your particular machine, you're now looking at 10, 15, or 20 pound increases, which is phenomenal, because as an individual moves along their continuum of strength, it becomes progressively harder to increase their strength. Just think about the first time you did a barbell squat. You probably progressed 20, 30, 40 pounds over the course of a couple of weeks, yet now you might be pushing hard just to get 10 extra pounds on that squat, or even 5 extra pounds on that squat. And so on a small accessory lift like a lat pull down, it's even more unrealistic that you're going to be able to make a 20-pound jump. So let's say, to be conservative, that you're trying to do a 10-pound jump on the lat pull down. That means we're going up to 110 pounds. So most people will pin the plate one up and go up 10 pounds, 15 or 20, depending on the unit they're using, and they're going to aim for those 15 reps. So now, over one set, we're talking 1,600. That's an interesting 5 I just wrote. 1,650 pounds over a set, and over that same comparable 3 sets of volume, we're now talking 4,950 pounds of work. That's significant. That's significant because that increase is 450 pounds divided into 4,500, simple math. That's a 10% increase in volume just by pegging the stack one plate down. Now, as you can imagine, if you're doing more than 3 sets, this is starting to become some serious volume that you're applying to your physical structure. Now, your body has to recover from the stress you're applying to it. And the further that volume increase becomes, the more challenging it is to adapt to the point where, yeah, you might get away with this the first couple of times you show up at the gym, but if you've been a regular gym goer for even just a couple of months, and you've been consistent with your training, even if your sleep is dialed in, even if your eating is dialed in, you're not going to play this game for very long before your application of physical stress far outweighs, pun intended, your capacity to recover. And that's important to note, because if you can't recover from it, you're literally just beating up your body. And so your form is likely going to become compromised because you're sore and fatigued. You might risk injury as a byproduct. And even if those two factors were not in play, you're not getting anything out of it because it's too much for your body to recover from. So you're literally just going to the gym to cause physical discomfort with no outcome that's desirable. Now, there's a couple of things we could do here. So assuming we make a jump of 10 pounds because we have no other option, what would be the best strategy would be to manage the rep range. So an example of this is you might do 100 pounds for a set of 15 reps, but when you jump to 110, maybe you're aiming now for 8 to 12. This would be a manageable jump because the rep range has adjusted in relation to the increase in load. This is a common approach, but it's not always optimal either, and I'll explain why. Because there's actually a simple solution that you can incorporate that will make this stress increase much more manageable. This volume increase will become much more sustainable. And it does require you to find a simple tool that you can use in the gym, a selectorized fractional plate. So you might even notice, if you go look at the machine at your gym, that they actually have these pinned at the very top of the weight stacks. And they can be brought down, usually some little mechanism releases them, and they can add a fractional increase of weight to the stack itself. And this is very useful because now instead of trying to jump 10 pounds, you can jump 5 or 7.5 instead of 15, or whatever the fractional that they have at the top of the machine allows you to jump by. So to give you an example, this here is a 2.5 pound fractional plate. Now, if we were to increase just by 2.5 pounds over 15 reps, we're talking a 37.5 pound increase in volume. That number's looking a little bit more realistic now, because when we bring this over here over the 3 sets, now we're talking a 112.5 pound increase as opposed to a 450. Now, as you can imagine, that's looking a lot like 2% in that range approximately. Not sure if I'm doing my math super accurately, but we'll say an approximate 2% increase when divided back in to the 4,500. And that is a much more manageable increase in stress for your body to recover from. And further, it's sustainable. You can continue to make that slight increase in volume over time much more realistic than 10%, which, if you consider it, there's not many people that are moving the whole stack with proper form on any cable exercise. And that's in large part due to the reality that they can't apply adequate stress to recover from and increase their strength so that they can move those heavier and heavier plates. They're trying to jump from 110 to 120, and then they might get that for 6 to 10 reps, and then they go from 120 to 130, and they get 2 to 4, but they can't get the reps in to actually increase that strength over time, at least not in a sustainable fashion. So this is one of the approaches that I take with clients, is having them get their hands on 2.5 pounds or 5 pounds fractional selectorized weights to put right on top of the stack, or to find the one on the machine that they use at their local gym. And then from there, we can manage the volume increases much more efficiently than if we were to make these massive jumps. And what's further interesting is, if you talk to anybody who has been training for a significant period of time and training consistently, they will tell you firsthand that not just a 2%, I've seen lifters get demolished by a 1.25% increase in volume. I'm talking people that sleep well, eat well, they are dialed in when it comes to training efforts. Training is their primary concern. And you bump volume on any exercise that they're already proficient at, that being the key. A new exercise is a little bit different, But if they've already been doing an exercise for a significant enough period of time where they have their numbers on that exercise, and they run a 1.25% volume increase considering a relative weight and set scheme, they're feeling it the next day. They're feeling it big time, because that is a lot of stress increase for their body to handle. So to even fathom running 10% increases for more than a week at that level, it's not going to happen. You might get away with it, but you won't get away with it for long, is kind of what I'm getting at. And the intent here, of course, is to actually get physically stronger. That's your aim. So you want to make sure that the stress you're applying is manageable, that your body can actually recover from it, because that will elicit the adaptation, and the adaptation is the desired outcome. The whole intent behind you showing up at the gym and paying those dues in sweat equity. So hopefully that clarifies why so few people can make long-term progress on cable machine accessory lifts. It has nothing to do with the fact that you can't get stronger on those lifts. You certainly can. You just have to make sure you're managing your numbers properly. And consider the fact that if you haven't been managing your numbers properly, and you've been consistently getting on and doing mid-cable rows with 110 pounds for 15 reps, basically every time you get on, except for, every couple of months and you decide to try 130 or 150 or what may be, taking this approach could be a complete game changer for you, because now you can start managing those progressions in an upward fashion. Over time, apply a lot more stress, build a lot more muscle, and as a byproduct, that'll increase your foundation behind those bigger lifts, which will of course contribute to further progressions on those exercises as well. So it becomes a big back and forth game, but both sides of the equation have to be considered. Managing those accessory lifts, those secondary lifts, is as important as managing those primary lifts, because they are in a sense what's contributing to that progression long term. So if you found this video informative, please share it with somebody that you feel would benefit from watching it. Further, make sure you follow or subscribe depending on what platform you might be consuming this content on. And further, if you have any questions, drop a comment, send me a DM. I'll make sure to cover it in one of the upcoming posts. Until then, stay strong.